Welcome again to Buzz Sports, your number one sports online channel, ikiwa tunazidi sana appreciate kwa support yenu, na wale hawaja subscribe, kindly go to YouTube, just type Buzz Sports, subscribe, and also put the notification bell on so that anytime we upload interviews, you're the first one to view. Facebook, Buzz Sports, and also on Twitter, X, Buzz Sports. And in Kenya currently, the conversation is about FKF election, who is vying, who is not, who is supporting who. And today I'm really honored and privileged to host one of the FKF presidential aspirants, Sammy Owino Kempes. Welcome, bro.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you inviting me here.
Yes. Yeah. I've looked for you for almost 6 months now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Since I heard that you want to vie for the big seat, I've been talking to Sammy Shole, and finally we are here.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe briefly, we need to, you just introduce yourself with Sammy Kempes so that viewers can know you.
Okay. My name is obviously Sammy Owino Kempes. My official name is Samuel Olali. Samuel Olali. So,
Okay.
but most people know me as Sammy Owino Kempes. So I was born in Ziwani. That's where I grew up.
Okay.
And I went to St. Bridget Primary. Then I transferred to Riverbank in Ngara. Went to Nairobi Technical High School. Ended up playing for Umeme. And then Gor Mahia, Luo Union, the national team. And then at some point in 82, I ended up going to the US for on a soccer scholarship.
Yes.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, kind of that's who I am.
So it's because of football that you went to the US?
Yes, I was very fortunate because I'd always wanted to go to university to study engineering.
Okay.
Those days, we only had one university, and it was hard enough to get in there, especially if you are an engineering student. And so I did well, but not well enough to go to the college. So when this opportunity came, you know, my family valued education. We valued education as well. So it was a tremendous opportunity for me, because not only was I going to continue to play football, but I was also going to get my degree in engineering, what I always wanted to do.
Yeah. Okay, I've been doing some research about you, and you played for Gor Mahia.
Yes.
Maybe can you give us a brief history about your football career?
Yeah. So when I was in Ziwani, obviously everybody went through. There's a lot of players that went through Ziwani.
Yeah.
So I was one of them. Most notably, Charles Ochieng. You know, he was somebody we looked up to. He made us realize that it was possible to go and play at higher level.
Okay.
Especially for the heights that he accomplished. He became one of the top players in the country, and so we looked up to him and said, if he can do it, then we can do it. And I always tell people that the greatest hope is not what you give people, but if you can give people hope, that's the greatest gift you can give people.
Yeah.
And that's what he did for us. So playing in Ziwani, playing for Umeme was always what we looked forward to. I started playing for Umeme at a very early age. At the age of 14, I played for the Umeme senior team. Prior to that, I was one of the few players from Ziwani that was invited to play for Olympic Youth Center, maybe the only one. So I went over there and I played for Olympic Youth Center, which was an academy that was formed as a collaboration between the German government and the Kenyan government. So I did get that opportunity to go and play there. And then I learned a lot. Then Umeme, you know, signed me up to play for the Umeme senior team at the age of 14. Then from there, Luo Union recruited me. So I ended up playing for Luo Union in the Eastern Central Club Championship. I was the youngest player in the tournament. Then Gor Mahia from there, we played Gor Mahia in a friendly game in Kisumu before we went. Luo Union went to Kampala to play in that tournament. And from there, they liked me, even though I at one time tried out with them and they didn't pick me, but they did like me because of how I performed. And then after the tournament, they came back and recruited me, and that's how I ended up playing for Gor Mahia. And then I was called to the national team at the age of 17.
Okay.
The late Jonathan Niva was the coach of the national team. And we were supposed to go to Korea for a huge tournament, which included Brazil and Germany. And then the then president Kenyatta died, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, and then the trip was cancelled. And so I ended up going for my A levels. Maybe most people don't understand. You did your O levels, then A levels. And so I took off playing football for the national team. And then I kept just playing for Gor Mahia. And then after my A levels, I rejoined in the national team. And my first game for the national team against Tanzania, I scored 2 goals. Yeah.
So you were a striker?
No, I was actually a midfielder.
Okay. So in your debut, you scored 2 goals.
I scored 2 goals. And one of my most memorable one is dribbled the players, faked across, the goalie committed, and I just put the ball in. Yeah. So that's one of my most memorable national team games. Yeah.
And maybe during those days, maybe, through this we can maybe get a little bit of the history. When you were playing for Gor Mahia, maybe some of the players you played with?
Yeah, I played with amazing players. To me, one of the greatest players I've ever played with is Alan Thigo. He was an amazing player. I learned a lot from him. He mentored me. He took me in his wings. He gave me tremendous opportunity. He allowed me. He was an incredibly big star. He was an icon.
Yeah.
And he never actually stayed on the bench. When I came in, he allowed me to play before him. He gave me his jersey number. And he always spoke well about me.
Yeah.
So when I played for Gor Mahia, for me, players like Alan Thigo were amazing to me. I idolized them. Bobby Ogola was an incredible player. Jerry Imbo, George Yoga, Daniel Odhiambo, Oduor. There was just so many good players. Yeah.
And during those days,
Timayeko again.
Timothy
Ayeko, another good player from Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah.
During those days, was football paying? What were you playing for?
The cool thing about football, I think honestly, when I look at how things were then and then compared to the way things were, even though we were not played on a professional level, I think that because we're not getting paid a lot of money now, some people get a lot of money, but for the most part, people are not getting a lot of money. Then we were paid allowances for games. So when we went to camp, we were also paid per day. So we were paid that allowance. But I think what was important is that we were given jobs. We were given jobs. So you had a job. And I think for me, when I look back, compared to how people, let's say here you get paid, but we're not paid enough to sustain us in the future. So when I compare that to when we played, the beauty of when we played was when you stopped playing, you are used to working, you had a job, and so you could kind of continue being in a good place. And to me, that when I see so many players struggling, I think it's because you play football on a full-time basis. You are not building anything beyond that. You don't have enough money. Contrast that to when we played, maybe you didn't get as much money, but you got good money. Like for people like us who went to the national team, we're paid, I know that night doesn't seem a lot, but it was good money and we're paid per day. Then you're paid for playing games. And then every game you played and won, you got good money. So, but on top of that, you had a career. So when you retired from football, you had something to fall back to. And I think it was really good.
Okay. And during your playing days, who was your role model when playing football?
Again, goes back to, in terms of the game itself, it was Alan Thigo.
Okay.
Alan Thigo to me was somebody that we played the same position. And he was to me amazing. He could see the game from a distance. When he had the ball, he always knew where the ball was gonna go. Obviously, I liked Charles Ochieng because he's somebody I knew. Chegouma was another one. If you go back to, are you talking about when I was playing or just any time? Is that what you're saying? Is during my playing days?
Yes, your playing days.
Okay, so Chegouma, I played with Chegouma briefly because I started when I was young. He was an amazing player. Timayeko, I learned a lot from him. Bobby Ogola was incredible as a player.
Yeah.
So there were so many good ones, but to me, Alan Thigo still stands out as somebody that I looked up to because I played the same position. Yeah.
You've talked about your first game was against Tanzania. Looking at how football levels are now between Kenya and Tanzania, during those days, how can you compare the levels in terms of, let's talk about the three countries, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda.
Yeah. Before I answer that, I think the first thing I want to say is during my days, people didn't go to Europe. African
Okay.
players all played in Africa. So you had all the good talent playing within the continent. So that obviously does not dilute the talent. I think the talent now is very diluted because people leave and go play somewhere else. So if you are born in Kenya, you played in Kenya.
Yeah.
So all the best players were playing for that
Around,
country.
yeah.
So to me, that improved the quality of the game. With those days, Kenya was at a good level. We dominated in the club championship. Like when I was playing, within the period that I played, Gor Mahia won Eastern Central Club Championship twice. Kenya national team, from the time we won 3 years in a row, the Sekafa Championship, Gor Mahia went to the finals of the African Club Cup Winners' Cup, which was the highest level of the competition.
Which is Champions League now.
Which is Champions League.
Yeah.
So if you just look at in terms of the performance of Kenya teams relative to Tanzanian teams, we were much better. Or even Uganda was good though. Uganda also did well. But I think if you compare, relatively speaking, to how we are performing now, we did relatively well. I think Tanzania has really made a huge, a huge jump in terms of what they're doing in football as a whole, and we've gone really backwards.
Yeah. And now you finished from Kenya, you got a scholarship, you went to the US. Which profession did you study?
So when I went to the US, I was very excited about going there because in my mind, I thought, I'd used to playing under big crowds because Gor Mahia used to be a big club, the national team. So when I got there, it was very disappointing because football was in the US was not very popular. People hardly played. So I remember my first game coming out of the tunnel. It was really not a tunnel. Coming out of the changing room and expecting this huge crowd, and there were about 500 people, and it was the most deflating thing for me relatively to where I came from. That's when I made my mind that my focus was going to be education. And to be honest with you, at the time, we played maybe 5 tough games. My college was very dominant. We had 7 players from Nigeria that had played for the national team. I just won the World Cup for the youth national team. We had 7 players from Ethiopian national team. So our team was stacked. Good, so we dominated a lot of those colleges, except for some few colleges that were able to be competitive. So when I went there and I saw where soccer was, I decided to focus on my education. So I did electrical engineering, graduated in 2.5 years, partly because A-level standards were pretty high here. So when I went there, a lot of the science courses were courses that I had done in my A-level. So I was able to I had to do extra hours. So in 2.5 years, I graduated, and the plan was to come back and play for Gor Mahia.
Yes.
And then one of my teachers, offered me an opportunity of a friend who had a company and said, my friend can give you a job. So I, decided he wanted to give me a job and also pay for my master's degree. So I opted for that option. Yeah.
And maybe how difficult it is for a player from Kenya to get a scholarship in the US?
By the way, I went to the US with a player by the name of National Watch Lule. Most people know him as Lule. He's an amazing player. We both played for the Gor Mahia and the national team together. So we were the first players in Kenya to get a scholarship to the US. And I feel proud because we opened up doors for a lot of people. At the time, honestly, it was very easy for me. I was doing so well from a soccer standpoint. There was no reason for me to go there. I had a good job. I was playing for the national team. I was playing for Gor Mahia. I was in a good place. And somebody came to me and said, there's this opportunity for you to go to play in the US on a soccer scholarship. And you can do engineering at the same time. So for me, there was no sense of urgency. I didn't really necessarily want to go. My parents were pushing me because life was good here. And so for me, it was almost like things were just happening automatically. I went to the to the embassy and they automatically stamped my visa without a lot of questions. I ended up so it was very easy process for me. So for me, my experience was easy. Now, remember soccer, football at the time in the US was not very popular. Things are obviously times were different. It is for you to go and play in the US now, the standards are much higher. And so they only accept national team level players now. So unless somebody knows you as being very good, your level has to be at national team level for you to go play. And the standards are good. So you're going to go there and play with some really good players. Yeah.
And maybe before we talk about your ambitions, looking at football in Kenya, there is a time I was just trying to know who Sammy Owino Kempes is, and I saw you donating kits, balls. What was moving you to, what was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, people don't know. People think I started. That's why sometimes I don't know what to say when people say, "Oh, you started getting interested in football when you are running for elections."
Yeah.
The reality of it is, I was involved then. The first part of my life in the US was not easy. I was just struggling to survive.
Okay.
So for many years, I couldn't help people home, including my parents, because I was just surviving. People think going to the US, you are there,
Just go make money.
you make money, but I was struggling even to feed myself. So the first few years were very difficult for me, so I could not help anybody. So when my life improved and I was able to help people, I helped Umeme, send the uniforms there, and some balls and stuff that I could. And then I started, my passion was in youth football. So I would identify individuals, people who had academies, and then I would help those people. And then we had I have a friend of mine called Tom Odhiambo, who was a national team player, played for Gor Mahia. Through him, we've also helped a lot of people in Nyanza as well. So I've been involved in football in terms of helping people as much as I could before this campaign. Obviously, nobody knows about it when you're doing it.
Yeah.
But when you go into campaign is what you see, then obviously the press comes in and you promote what you are doing. But honestly, I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of giving people things and having to let people know. It's just the reality of what you have to do in the campaigns. But I don't like that idea because I did it before without having to do that. And so it's something I've been doing, but you make a choice, obviously, in terms of where you want your focus to be. And my focus has always been on the youth.
And looking at those teams you've been assisting, maybe behind the cameras, as you're saying, football in the grassroots is not doing fine. In fact, players are really struggling, even leave alone being paid. Meeting the logistics to go and play the games. Some of them play barefooted. Who is to blame?
At the end of the day, everything starts at the top. I think our problem, to be honest with you right now, is, and it's not just with this administration. It goes back. I think sometimes we focus on this but if you look at the administration before that, and then before that, our football has been bad for a long time. And so our biggest problem is that the people at the top of the federation are the problem. I'm not saying that when you get in there, you'll solve everything, but I think you can put structures in place that allow for the development of football. And for me, that's what's lacking. And like you say, people love football. I go to, different counties and, if you go to the grassroots levels, you see people doing well despite what the federation is doing. But there's a lot of people who are struggling to own a football team at any level, at even the lowest level. It's very expensive. And so there's a lot of people who are putting their own sweat to be able to participate in football, and they're actually doing it. And then there's a level of corruption that is incredible. So at the grassroots level, there's actually zero support. If anything, they're being penalized by being charged all these fees to be able to participate in the league. And then you have a lot of corrupt individuals at that level that are taking advantage of the situation and charging people for money to be able to make it happen. It's sad to see. And then you look at the Premier League teams, you know, it's expensive to run a Premier League team, and we are not bringing in money. And when money is brought in, you know, some of it gets stolen, whether it's FIFA money or corporate money, sponsorship money, or even money that comes from the media. And then NSL owners are struggling, and then you go to Division 1 struggling. The demands that they are putting in place for these individuals who don't have a lot of money, it's really sad. Yeah.
And at what particular moment did you decide that I want to go for the top seat, the FKF's top seat?
Yeah, you know, everybody decides. You know, we're all different. You know, the timing of what you want to do and when you want to do something is always depends on the individual.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of followed Kenyan football. I've always been interested. I've watched their games on TV. There's a TV channel that records all games in champion. Games played in AFCON. And so for me, I've always had interest in following football, and I've known the realities of football here in terms of the suffering. And I was one of those people that used to complain a lot about what's happening. You know, I'd look at it and say, okay, I'm here and all this is happening. And of course, you know, a lot of people who tell you what's happening as well. But that's kind of where I was, is just look at it and say, there's problems here. I'm going to participate as far as I can in terms of supporting academy, people who have academies. That's to the extent in which I was participating. And then one time, you know, I was talking to somebody and I said to myself, you know, I have all this experience that I have, gathered, built over the years. You know, as a coach, I was a highly licensed coach, very successful in the US. Why don't I get involved with youth soccer? So I called through Ghost Mule. He connected me to Nick Mwendwa, and I told Nick I'm interested in coaching the under 17, and Nick suggested that I coach the under 20 because in the under 17 there's corruption in football, and you know, you have under 17 players playing against 25 years old. And to overcome that age differential is very bad. You can overcome with the under 20, which made a lot of sense. And so he asked me to send a proposal, we started talking about that. And then I sent a proposal. And I was aware of the problems of Kenyan football. I did not want interference from the federation because I knew what was going on from just talking to people.
Yeah.
They start getting involved in selecting players. You know, you have financial issues. For me, when I'm involved in something, I want to do it right.
Yeah.
So I made a proposal that addressed all those issues. So I said, you know, I want to be in charge. I want to be 100% in charge of selecting the players. I want to be make sure that if I go bring in money, that you can keep 20%, but 80% needs to go to the team. And I want to be in charge of the logistics, and because I didn't want when I put my reputation on something, I always want to do it right, because at the end of the day, I'm responsible. So I was willing to put my own money, and then I was willing to look for sponsorship to make sure that if I was involved in it, that I would be able to do a really good job, because I thought potential was there to build something great. So they communicate back with me. I think Nick was very open, to be fair to him. But what happened along the way is that as soon as I presented my proposal, they said, we'll get back with you. Barry communicated with me, and then the whole issue went. Now, I don't necessarily, maybe I asked for too much, but I needed to ask for that. I felt like for things to be done correctly, I needed to ask for that. And I was willing to put my own money. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe the reason is that they had other, because I think after that, Nick had other problems. So I'm not going to blame them for it. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. Yeah.
And talking about the national teams, what's not working for us?
I think people always look at the national team and they look at the national team, expect results at the national team level. When people don't realize that when you get to the national team level, it's too late. If you don't have the right development players that you've developed at the grassroots level, the youth level, it's too late at the national. When we succeeded, it was because of that program called the Olympic Youth Center that was established in multiple cities around the country, and national team players, the majority of the national team came from that program. That's why we dominated the region. We have to put in place infrastructure for the development of players so that by the time they get to the national team, they are good enough. I know sometimes people get blamed. I know some people say, oh, why are we losing? And if you say, oh, the players, we don't have the high level players, people blame you and say, well, what do you mean? We're players all over, you know? But I've watched games here, Premier League games, I've watched national team games. The reality is we don't have the level of players. Does it mean we can't win? No, it doesn't mean we cannot win. You can still win, you know, even without, but it's going to be difficult, is all I'm saying. We need to put focus on developing youth so that by the time they get there, we have plenty of players who can play at a high level. That's what's lacking.
Okay, so as a qualified coach, at what age are you supposed to start developing a player?
Yeah, so players you can start developing as early as 8 years old. Sometimes even younger. But the recommendation is always that at a young age, the less structure, the better. So the recommendation is when players are young, the more they have an environment where they play freely, the better off they'll be. So part of the problem, I think, in terms of developing creative players around the world, not just you know, in specific places. If you look at Brazil used to produce a lot of incredibly talented players, very creative players. But if you look at how less they produce them, part of the reason is because there's too much structure at a very early age. So players, countries like Spain still produce very technical, creative players because they still play in the streets a lot. So I think for us, what we need to do is to say, you know, we have these academies, but then we have to allow coaches to understand that when kids are young, the freedom to be creative and less control is better, so that they can develop those creative plays.
Very nice. Now, you want to go for the top seat? I haven't seen your manifesto.
Yes.
Maybe, is your manifesto out?
Yes, you know, you always say manifesto. You know, manifesto to me is, I always tell people, you know, manifesto is as good as the paper is written on. I think somebody comes out with this manifesto, but it really doesn't bring. I have. You wanna call it manifesto? My approach is really different. You know, I've seen this incredibly huge manifesto with all these ideas, and I look at them and I say, really, you know. My ideas are very simple. I think for me, the issues of Kenya football is simple. It's not complicated. Let's not complicate it.
Yes.
You know, you have these manifestos of people. I'll build this huge stadium. Where? I'll do this. Kenya, we have problems in Kenya. You know what? It's very simple. You know, you can look at the league. You can look at our administration of the game. You can look at lack of structures. You can look at corruption, which basically look at women's football. You can look at relationships, which means whether it's relationship to the government or FIFA or whoever or companies that wants to sponsor the club. But our football, I mean, you can look at our football in multiple ways. Number one is, what is our number one problem? Now, number one problem is the organization at the top, right? We don't have the structures that allow us to organize football well. So from an administrative standpoint, it's really lacking. You know, the people in charge right now, and even in the past, like I said, right, they are very corrupt, right? They are very corrupt. So basically, those structures that need to be there, you know, at the top level, people don't follow them. If you look at the Federation Constitution, it's very clear on the responsibility of every organ. Very clearly, the authority, what the committees are there. So So you've got the general meeting, which is the supreme organ, and then you've got the NEC, which is the executive, and then you've got the standing and other committees. So you've got the committee, and then you've got other bodies. Each one has a responsibility. So on paper, everything's good. Our problem is not that we don't have structures in place. In terms of administrative side, we do have them. It's just that we ignore them. You know, like Nick, I don't think those people are given the authority to do anything. So there's that part of the administrative part. Then there is lack of structures. Then there is, like I say, lack of structures in terms of youth football, in terms of referees, in terms of coaching. All those things are lacking. By that I mean it's not just somebody coming and say, oh, I had a coaching clinic somewhere. Structures, I mean, for example, if you look at youth football, just as an example, do you have a league at the youth level that ties in the sub-branch league to the national level, where somebody can actually be seen at the sub-branch and there's a systematic way of that kid being recognized to play for a national team? Do you have a league that ties the whole countries together? We don't have that. So what I want to do is to be able to say, okay, we have these leagues that start at the country level, at the youth system, where we don't have leagues except individual people playing their own leagues. I'm talking about league that's organized at the top level, where we start at the sub-county level, we go to the county level, we go to the regional level, and then we go to the national level, where any of those teams from any part of the county has a chance to make it all the way to the top. Then we have to have scouts that go and identify players. And then, you know, at the sub-county level, at the county level, at the regional level, the national level. And then you have coaches that actually coach at the sub-county level. And you have coaching education available for them at every level, if you know what I mean. So we have to have those structure for youth football. That's just an example. You're talking about coaching also. We have to be able to provide that as well at all levels. So that's lacking there. And then, you know, you look at, I'm jumping all over the place, but if you look at our leagues, for example, it's a problem. I've attended Premier League games and Women's League games, and you know, people ask me, what do you think? And for me, it's just a couple of things don't make sense. The idea that teams don't know where they're going to go to play until like the last 2 days to the game. It's just a mess. And sponsors cannot work with that. So if you're asking sponsors to come and sponsor a team, you guys, for example, as people, you know, anybody who wants to, you know, broadcast games and stuff, and they don't know where the games are, they can't prepare.
It's difficult.
It's difficult. Sponsors have to prepare on where they're gonna, you know, how they're gonna get there, how they're gonna. So that's an issue. Then the other issue is, for example, the fields that they play on. The quality is very bad. The security is bad. So if you go to a game, like I went to some games, and just getting in is ridiculous. People are pushing, you know, there's no way, if I have a family, that I can go to those games. So we're alienating a lot of people from going to go to those games. Then the other part of it is football is entertainment. And we have to create an entertainment environment where people come in and they actually entertain. So if we raise the quality of the game, then the entertainment of playing entertainment goes high. But we have to create other forms of entertainment, pre-game entertainment, halftime entertainment that attracts other people to the game that would otherwise not come, and eventually create the love for the game. So there's all this women football. Women football is ignored. I know people say, oh, but they made it to the World Cup. The reality is they made it despite the federation. A lot needs to be done there to encourage women football, partnerships that need to be enhanced. So there's all these sectors of the game that we need to work on. And I have the experience, infrastructure. I build infrastructures. If you look at the academy that we have, you know, I've built incredible fields, multiple fields. So I have the experience of doing that.
You've talked about venues, and according to people, they say we are lacking venues because of the scarcity of stadiums. You are coming in. How are you going to sort out this?
Yeah, you know, when candidates tell you, "Oh, I'm going to build a stadium here," I laugh at them, and the reason is because if you look at the way the Kenya setup is, there are some that stadiums are very expensive. They cost a lot of money. So that's why a lot of them are built by the government, and the government works in cooperation with a specific county to build the stadium. And what happens to us, if you look at a lot of our stadiums that are being built, a lot of money is given to them, and nothing. The stadiums are in horrible state because of corruption. So we have the issue as a country that we have to address, the issue of corruption, which is bigger than us at the federation level. That is something that needs to be talked about and addressed at the national level. Building of stadium is a victim of that. I've visited multiple stadiums, and you look at how much money has been spent, and then you look at the state of the stadium. It looks like it's been used for 10 years, or for 100 years actually. It's in bad shape. The field is bad. It's a shame. So there's that issue of the infrastructure. We need to insert ourselves and find a way of getting into the government and having influence at the government level, at the political level, to make sure that we have a say, especially with me, given the experience that I have in ensuring that. That's complicated. Now, the other option is to bring in private sectors in conjunction, to work in conjunction with the government. Can we convince the government, like what's happening with the Atlanta Stadium, okay? The army is involved in it and all that stuff. So hopefully that is done correctly. But there's the second part of that equation, which is once the stadium is built, there's one thing about building a soccer field. The next part is maintaining it, which is where you can have a good stadium, but in a short time it looks really bad. How do we make sure that it is maintained properly? So we can work in conjunction with private sectors to make deals with them and say, you run the stadium, you pay the government X number of dollars to be able to. Government does not have the expertise to run stadium. To me, we need to look at these opportunities. But when it comes to building fields for grassroots, those fields are normally not very expensive. I feel like where I can really help is build stadiums in every county for practices. Build artificial for training, for league games at the lower level. That's what's lacking. Our issues is how do we address the grassroots level? Let's not talk about these huge projects when we have these things that need to be addressed. Teams that struggle with the cost of running a team. How do we have enough fields? I think that one we can accomplish through working with FIFA. FIFA money can come in, corporate money can come in. We can work with counties. That's where my expertise is. I can help build stadiums at a much less expensive rate than anybody can do it. I can bring that expertise to bear.
There is the issue of funds. Nowadays, funds are not going to the stadium, and it seems that the current regime doesn't. It's not a bother to them. What mechanisms are you going to put in place to make sure that funds love coming to the stadium and we start getting a big number of funds coming into the stadium?
Yes, if you look at that's what there's multiple ways of looking at it, right? We have to look at sports as entertainment. So people will come to be entertained. They pay to be entertained. Of course, if you have clubs like Gor Mahia, there's an attach, or the FC, there's a community asset to it. But I always tell every club, whether it's Gor Mahia or Police or these corporate clubs, become a community club. Not only Gor Mahia needs to be a community club, KBC needs to be a community club, Police needs to be a community club. Make sure that the community where you are becomes, you become valuable, and you involve those community people. So that at the end of the day, community club is not just a tribal thing like we always think about. Community is anything that allows people within that community to become part of it, so that they feel a sense of ownership. So these clubs, every club in Kenya needs to build a sense of community and involve the people within them so that there is support. You are more likely to go support a team if there's an attachment to it. So we need to sell the clubs the idea that you need to be involved in the community and the support of the club. Why don't you tell your players to go to schools? Why don't you tell your players to go do an event, feed hungry people, so that community feels like, hey, there is a connection between me and that organization. That has nothing to do with the FC or Gor Mahia. This can happen with any club. Then there's marketing of a club. As a federation, we have to make sure that we market individual players and we market clubs. People identify with players. You know, people, you find star players and then invest to make sure that people know who they are, people associate with them, and then people want to go to stadiums and see them. So we have to spend money on marketing, which we don't do. Then there's the issue of, you talk about security. We have to work on security. For me, having watched Premier League games, we cannot lift our standards without dealing with the issue of security. The federation needs to invest in security. Clubs need to see the value of having a safe environment. They need to understand that. They need to work with the federation to make sure that the games are safe. Then we have to increase entertainment value, which means that, you know, we have to lift the standards of football. I'm a soccer fan. If you take me to some of those games, they're boring. Chances are not created frequently. You don't see entertaining players. So there's a host of things that need to be done, and they all cost money. So it brings me to the most important question. You know, how do we get the money to do all those things? And sponsorship comes in when people trust you. There are people who will give the federation money, FIFA as an obligation, the government as an obligation. So you have these entities that give the federation money, but we need to expand that. And the only reason those people are more people are gonna give money, like corporate world, is if we show value to them. They're not gonna associate with games when those games are violent, when people don't come to the games. So there's a lot of things that we need to do to be able to increase the value of our league, so that people see the need to put in more money. Like in Tanzania, have you seen Tanzania games? So you've seen their pre-game show and the halftime show. It's not just about football. A lot of people come there because of the entertainment value. We have to increase that. And so we as a federation need to understand that there's a lot of things that come into play in order to build that. But this all works. You have to sit down with the league, Premier League teams and the NSL teams to show them the value of working together to make these things happen.
And you know, when people go for such seats, there is a lot that people talk about. Like now, there are those who are saying, Sammy has just come back after 20 years.
Yes.
What is he like? He has been hiding or just somewhere there. He's now coming here. You know, what can you tell people of that kind?
No, it's a small world. I mean, it's like saying just because you're here, you don't know what's happening here. The reality is our ability to be in a physical space, if that makes sense, is very limited. If everything we do is based on where we are physically, then we're very limited in our scope of what we can do. What makes us humans great is that we can expand beyond our physical space. And so I always tell people that the world is small these days, to where, regardless of where you are, you can be more knowledgeable about a place than a person who's there. I'll give you an example. If you have a person who stays at home, never goes anywhere, but there's a person who's somewhere else and reads about a place, who will know more about the place. The person who's there. The second thing is, you know, people don't understand. You know, I come here quite often. I talk to people. I read about football. I do associate with some people who are involved in football. Plus, I think sometimes in life, right, if you are in something, your perspective is different. If you remove yourself from it, it's like watching something from this perspective. You see differently from the person who's there. From here, you can see a different view of everything. From in here, I see only what I can see. I bring, experience is experience. It's very hard to succeed in the US, in my opinion. People who say it's easier to succeed there don't understand. It's very difficult. It's difficult, especially for a black person.
Yeah, true.
And I've succeeded there. And there were a lot of challenges. Succeeding, Kenya is my home. I was born here. You know, we can take elements of my experience and adapt to this community. So I think my being in the US is something that is an advantage as opposed to, I'm in an environment where there's less corruption.
Yeah.
And I bring that to the table. And I think I just see things from a different view that typically people don't see. Yeah.
And another question, I was watching your press briefing. Was it on Saturday?
Yes.
It was on a Saturday. Yeah. And you told us that you've gone to FIFA. What has taken you to FIFA and why?
Yeah, it's really simple. People say, "Oh, Sammy has gone to FIFA because of this and this and this." They really don't know why I went to. And I'm like, so it's like somebody makes an argument and say, Sammy went to FIFA because of this,
yes.
And somebody says, that's very stupid of him to go to FIFA because so you are being credited with something you didn't do, and then you're being criticized for it, and that's not the reason why. But that's the nature of the thing. It's very simple. We just want free and fair, credible elections. We want a future that is free of litigations. We want to preserve AFCON, hosting of AFCON. We want an open elections that allows qualified people to participate. Those are 4 things. And it's very simple. With this path that the Federation has, I don't see a path to that. I don't see a free and fair, credible election. I don't see, an election free of litigation. Even if the election takes place, let's say I win, I'm afraid I may be sued by somebody because of the wrongs of those.
Yeah.
I see people being locked up that are qualified. I don't see an open election, and I worry about hosting AFCON because if we go through the election and litigation happen and we get, then what are our chances? Whereas normalization committee opens up opportunities for us to have a new start and build on those things that I mentioned. Yeah.
And some people are saying that you are not qualified to vie. You've heard about it.
Yeah, those are people who don't. I am qualified based on their criteria.
Are you a Kenyan or an American?
I'm a Kenyan citizen. How about that? Yeah. You are a Kenyan citizen. I'm a Kenyan citizen. And I can show you my passport if you want. That shows I'm a more Kenyan than a lot of those people that say they're Kenyan. Number one, I played for Harambee Stars. Yes. Do you play for the national team if you're not a Kenyan?
You can't.
So that means a non-citizen can play for the national team, which makes no sense, right?
Yeah, true.
Some of those people who say I'm not a citizen are not. They have messed up our game. They have messed up our game so bad. They should not be even close to football. But it's the nature of the beast.
Maybe at one time you denounced your citizenship. Maybe we don't know.
No, I never denounced my citizenship. Yeah, I never denounced my citizenship. I think what people need to understand is in life, all of us look for better opportunities, right? All of us. You don't get castigated for going out there to look. I would like for my kid someday, if I can take him where there's an opportunity to go and get their education. It's just what we want to do. You can't be accused of going into a place to make Kenya better, to make your and then you can come back and give, contribute to the building of the Kenya society. And I think that's what I've done. I've gone to a place, I've gathered this knowledge, and I want to bring it and contribute to the country. So, I am a bona fide Kenya citizen, born in Kenya, grew up in Kenya, for around stars. So, I would put my qualification against anybody, and my contribution to the Kenya society as a national team player, Gor Mahia player, representing me. Who can say that as a candidate? You name one person. A lot of those people, their contribution to Kenyan society is stealing our money. I have not stolen Kenyan money, right?
You've just played for Gor Mahia.
I played for Gor Mahia, I played for the national team. I brought money in this country through foreign exchange.
Yes.
I bring money here. I don't take money away.
Yeah, true.
Contrast that to the people, some of the people are running. All I've done is take money away. So
now, someone tells me that you are building. Is it an academy or a sports complex? I'm not so sure.
An academy.
An academy.
So it's the concept is the vision is that we build an academy, and we want to bring a school. So it's gonna be a boarding school. We may have a day school as well, but primarily a boarding school where we recruit players from all over Africa, primarily from Kenya, from all parts of the country, and then we bring them in, and then we develop them. Highly developed coaches with the best training. And so we have that aspect of it. So the plan is to have 2 fields. We have a master plan already, 2 fields and a stadium. And that stadium, we can have leagues played there. And then we will have a place, what we call a Nyamachoma place, where people can come and watch games, eat. You know, kids have a playing area, so that if parents want to come there on a weekend and watch their kids, then they have a place where they can relax, and then their kids do other. If they have siblings can play. Then we also want to build like hotel, conference rooms. The idea is that if you are a national team or a club that wants a place, and you're preparing for an international tournament and want a place that has everything,
You go there.
you go there. If you are a student who wants to play at the highest level, wants to commit to football, and you have the potential, you get there. You know, if you are just a tourist that wants to go to one of the parks in Kenya, you know, and has nothing to do with football, we have a place for you. So it's going to be a place that has a soccer school, has a place for people to kind of hang out and kids to play, has another building with conference rooms and also rooms, and then there's other going to be individual rooms where tourists or anybody can stay.
Is it something that you just started, or it started long time ago?
The concept of building an academy is something I've always thought about. It's something that I've always had in mind. It is very difficult in Kenya to build something of that magnitude if you are not present. And so the timing had to be that I'm here. So now that I've moved here, now I can actually oversee it and make sure it happens.
You win, you lose, it will still go.
It has nothing to do with my being president of. I mean, that's always been something I've wanted to do. I'm not doing it because of being a football president of Kenya Football Kenya Federation. It's just something that I've always wanted to do. It's my passion. It's something I'm excited about, and something that I feel can help a lot of people.
Where are you putting it?
In Kajiado.
I think we will try go there and see the progress, so that we can update you.
So the first thing is we're fencing it, and then we're going to do it in stages, and then the second thing is build the 2 fields plus the school. Then we're going to build the Nyamachoma area at the same time. So that's going to be phase 1. And then phase 2 is going to be starting to build the hotels and the conference room. So we're going to build in phases. Yeah.
That's good, and congratulations for that.
Thank you. It's got a long way to go, but
yeah. Now I want to talk to delegates.
Yes.
Because those are the people who are going to vote anyway. I want you to just look at the camera, talk to that delegate who will be watching this interview, so that he can get a message straight from you.
Okay, so as far as the delegates are concerned, for those who don't understand, the delegates consist of Premier League teams, NS10 and NSL teams, 10 Division 1 teams. Then we've got the 5 women teams, the 48 chairmen from every county, or the 48 representatives from every county. And then we've got multiple associations that have one individual, like the women representative, the referees, the coaches and the players. They all have representatives. So in total, there's 94 delegates. So the thing I want to say is this, is that, you know, our football has suffered for a long time. And we have an opportunity right now. And we have a candidate who truly wants to change our football. And sometimes in our football, the problem is that some of us as delegates are willing to sacrifice 4 years of our football for the benefit of some little money. What I'm urging the delegates to really think through this election. This is an opportunity that probably we've never had before. I believe I'm a candidate that is extremely qualified, has the competence, has the passion, truly wants to change football. And I'm urging you guys to think through it very carefully. I'm not saying you vote for me, but think through it and make sure that when you vote, that you vote for the right candidate. Football has tremendous potential, and we can do great things for our young people, just like football did for me. And we can do great things for the community in terms of bringing business to communities. So a lot of we can do we can build communities, we can create jobs, we can build young kids and give them opportunities like it did. There's these amazing opportunities that we have. I know there's a lot of hopelessness because we've suffered for many years, but I believe anything is possible. So just think through it and vote for the right person and bring about real change.
Now, guys, we've listened. I think we've had an amazing conversation with Sammy Olali, sorry. Yeah. Many know him as Sammy Owino Kempes. From what I've heard from him, is like some of us who tuna critique without information or tunaongea kuhusu mtu atumjui, and that is why we've created this platform to listen to them. The only thing we need to do, just listen to them. Ule mwenye anakubamba, ingia tu huko. Sio tuache propaganda, okay? So I think we've listened, and we will keep listening to more of them. But the good thing is that already is doing a very good job huko Kajiado, of which tutakuwa tuna follow pole pole, because it's something that will help your brothers, your sisters. Ni watu wenu watasaidika, because I don't think your complex out of the academy itatoshea watoto wake kama kuna watoto, that is. So it's being built for us, guys. So I think I really congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
I wish you well. We will walk with you this journey. We will always follow you up. We'll always come to ask how far have you gone with your campaigns, so that God will see you through, and maybe you'll be our next president.
Yeah, I think what you need to do is stop saying maybe. Yeah.
You're the next.
I'm the next president of football. Well, I believe so.
So in 2025 January, I'll be interviewing you as the president.
As the president of the football Kenyan.
All the best, bro.
Yes, thank you. But thank you for inviting me.
I'm really glad that you also accepted the.
No, there's no definitely. There's no choice for me.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
So keep it Buzz Sports. Keep on subscribing kama kawa. Sisi ndio wale. Hakuna channel ingine kama hii vile mnatambua. So pale Facebook Buzz Sports, X on Twitter Buzz Sports, na director wangu pale Jemo anasema time is up.